Okay, everyone, welcome back from lunch. Nice to see everyone back. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. We're going to help you to understand breathing mindfulness meditation, because now you guys see how it's part of the path, but it's not the only part of the path, right? Sometimes people think that the Buddha sat under a tree, he meditated and instantly got to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. You can see the whole path now, that there's right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. If you were meditating, even though you can't do this, if you were meditating 23 hours a day, and you went outside for an hour a day and you were bitter and harsh and hostile with people, you're not anywhere close to enlightenment, right? So it's not just meditation that's going to get you to enlightenment. You need all those factors to be able to get you to enlightenment, to train your mind. So meditation is important, and you can't meditate your way to enlightenment, but you also wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without meditation either. So you're going to need to know meditation. So I'm going to help you guys to understand the ins and outs of breathing mindfulness meditation so that you can build up your practice and help you to develop all those other factors like mindfulness and right effort and all those other things. So just like always, if you guys have questions, just let me know. I'm going to pause a few times. You guys are welcome to use the microphones here online. If you guys could put those into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or raise your hand in Zoom, that would be helpful. So first, let's just start with some basics about meditation so that when I say the word meditation, you know what it is that I'm describing. Meditation is a technique to actively train the mind during dedicated, independent, purposeful training sessions to eliminate unwholesome qualities of the mind and or cultivate wholesome qualities in the mind in the positions of seated, lying, standing, and walking. Okay, so it's a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're actively training the mind. You're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities. And there's 4 positions, which I'm going to teach you. There's the seated, lying, standing, and walking positions. It's just as important as it is to share with you what meditation is, it's just as important to share what meditation is not. Because nowadays you might hear someone say, hey, I'm going to go to the gym and meditate, or I'm going to go for a walk and meditate, or I'm going to go take a drive and meditate. If you thought that that's what meditation was, and you hear me recommend 2 or 3 times a day, and you just went and did some gardening, or you walked the dog, or you went to the gym to exercise, and you thought that was meditating, you're not going to get to enlightenment that way. So you need to be able to know what is meditation and what isn't meditation, because you're going to need to do these dedicated, purposeful training sessions 2 or 3 times a day. Okay, so this is what meditation is. And whether your definition is the same as this or not is up to you, right? I'm here sharing with you what I understand and what I know the path to enlightenment to be. And whether you agree with this definition or not is up to you. Remember, if you're unenlightened, when you're studying the teachings of the Buddha, you're going to disagree with certain things that are being shared. So it's not about whether you agree or disagree with the teachings of the Buddha. It's about making sure that you look at the teachings and you bring your wisdom up to the level of understanding that the Buddha had. Whereas if you just look at something and you just agree with it or disagree with it, you're not taking the time to be able to consider that thing. So there's going to be things on the path to enlightenment that you disagree with, like when we were talking about the soul. Right? You're going to hear things that you're like, whoa, I disagree with that, or I've never heard that before. But that's an opportunity for you to learn and grow and develop. If you're in a classroom where everything that the teacher teaches, you already understand, you're in the wrong classroom, right? Because you're not growing and developing. You're not learning new things. So when you're in a classroom that you're hearing things from a teacher that you haven't heard before, that's the perfect place for you. And now you need to challenge your own mind to be able to let go of those certain false beliefs, opinions, and views, so that then you can bring in this new wisdom. So this is the way that I describe meditation, because it explains what it is that you're actually doing during the meditation. You're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and cultivating certain wholesome qualities. And it's a dedicated, purposeful training session in these positions of seated, lying, standing, and walking. As you're developing your meditation practice, it would be wise to have a meditation teacher, because as you guys heard yesterday, there's only one type of person that can get to enlightenment without the help of any teachers or any guides. That's an actual Buddha. So you're going to need teachers. You're going to need people to help you along the path. I'm going to share with you a situation where an individual didn't have a teacher and what happened, so that you can understand how important it is to have a teacher. There was an individual several years ago they contacted me that was having all kinds of difficulties and struggles. And they had been trying to get to enlightenment on their own for about 2 years. They were reading books, they were watching videos, they were meditating, all these kinds of things. And they were trying to get to enlightenment. And they worked themselves into a real difficult situation. This person was a doctor, they were a physician, and they ended up getting to a point where they were having obsessive thoughts. They were sleeping 23 hours a day. They were not able to work any longer. They were having suicidal thoughts, and their relationship with their fiance was falling apart, and their other relationships were falling apart too. Now, I don't suspect any of that's going to happen for you, but it happened for this individual because they didn't understand that they needed a teacher in order to help them to get to enlightenment. You can't get to enlightenment by yourself. You're going to need guidance. But eventually, this individual, they figured out that they needed some help, and this person reached out to me, and I tried to help them for a few months over the internet through messaging and voice videos and stuff like that and video calls. But I invited this person to Thailand because it was a pretty significant case. And they came here and they did some training, and then they went back to their own country. They eventually worked themselves out of those difficulties. But for about 4 to 6 years, their life was very challenging. They're now back to work. They're not having suicidal thoughts anymore. They're not having obsessive thoughts. But for a period of time, their life was quite miserable. And again, I don't suspect that will ever happen for you, because you understand that you need to have a teacher and that you need somebody to reach out to, because you can't ask a book questions, right? So you're going to need somebody to ask questions to. Nowadays, we're kind of in this self-service environment where if you were interested to learn how to bake brownies, you'd probably get on the internet, you'd probably look at some recipes, look at some YouTube videos, and you could bake brownies, right? But we're not baking brownies here. We're training the mind. And this is something that you're going to need help and you're going to need guidance with. And oftentimes the ego is in the mind trying to convince you that you can do this on your own. But just by the fact of choosing to have a teacher, it's the mind admitting to itself that you don't know everything about the world, and it's helping your mind to empty out some of its ego. So this is part of the reason why it's important to have a teacher. And some other reasons why it's important too is because you're not going to be able to see all the aspects of your mind. There's certain things in your mind and certain things that you're doing that your mind doesn't allow you to see it. So by having a teacher involved, they can actually see the wholesome qualities in your mind. They can also see the unwholesome qualities in your mind, and then they can actually help you. So you need somebody to be able to guide you along the path. So I encourage you guys to have teachers or a teacher that you have confidence in, that you can go to get help from. You're going to need that throughout your journey to enlightenment. Then in terms of the meditation positions, there's 4 positions that there are for meditation. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking. I'm going to introduce you to all of these, and I'm going to share with you the different situations where I've used these different positions, and then you'll have that insight. Whether you use them in these types of situations or not is up to you. It's your practice. It's your individual decisions that are going to lead to your results, but I'll share with you the situations where I've used these, and then just like everything else, you don't believe the teachings, right? You don't believe what I'm sharing with you. You can learn what it is that I'm sharing with you, reflect on that, and then practice it and see if it works for you in those same situations. And you might find other situations that these positions actually work for you. So I'll share with you these positions. So there's the seated position. This is where you can either sit on the floor, you can sit in a chair, on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, any of these different places. There's not just one way to sit. You can sit however you like. What's important is that the body is comfortable, not luxurious and not painful, but it's comfortable. If you're on the floor, usually you have cushions. Sometimes people like to bring their legs together in the cross-leg position, but you like to just do that lightly, because if they're too tight, it can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets the hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, and allows the circulation to flow. But there's other things you could do with your legs too. There's not just one way to do it. But if you're going to cross them, those are some options for you. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. But it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here too. Because if everybody did it the same way, that would be permanence. And there's no such thing as that, right? There's the universal truth of impermanence. We know that that's going to need to occur even with the styles of meditation in terms of your position. So there's other options here, like putting your palms on your thighs or your knees or your palms up, or resting your hands comfortably in your lap. These are all options for you. And then if you were in a chair or a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, sometimes people put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair with my legs crossed, so that's an option too. There's many different ways to sit, and you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. It's helpful if the upper body is erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back. This will help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic or complacent. But if you're real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you like the upper body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back. Not only will it help keep the mind attentive and alert, but it'll also make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. And you need the mind to be attentive and alert because, again, it's a dedicated, active, purposeful training session. This isn't time to zone out and put together your grocery list and think about your vacation that's coming up. That's not what this is. This is a focused training, right? You would like to be dedicated and purposeful with your training. And then the seated position, the way that I've used this is like the primary form of meditation in terms of your body position. I will tend to use this one. Probably 80 to 90% of the meditations I've ever done have been in the seated position because it's really accessible and it's really easy, and you can do it just about anywhere, right? Even when you're sitting in a doctor's office, you could sit there and meditate. So the seated position is like the go-to position for most people, the primary position. But in the seated position, you might notice sometimes that the body is having pain, maybe back pain or hip pain or knee pain or something like that. And that's where the lying position comes in. That if you're noticing any physical pain in the body, you could switch to the lying position where you lay on your back, face up, with your arms out to the side. If you've done yoga, I think they call this resting pose or corpse pose, shavasana, if you know that term, right? So that would be how you would like to lie. But that doesn't mean you couldn't lay another way too, but that's just the common way that people will lay. In this particular position, all the muscles are completely relaxed, right? And now the body can be completely comfortable in that position. But and by the way, what you're doing with the mind, it's exactly the same thing. It doesn't change what you're doing with the mind just when you're changing body position. But in the lying position, even also in the seated position, sometimes you can get sleepy and you can doze off. And if you're noticing this, that's where if you would like to extend your meditation session, you have standing and you have walking. The standing position, when you stand up with your feet at about shoulders width, you can clasp your wrist in front of you, you can put them to the side, or you can clasp behind you. From the standing position, your mind will tend to be more invigorated, and this is helpful if you're falling asleep. But I've also used this in situations where maybe I was waiting for a bus, and I knew that it wasn't going to be coming for like 15-20 minutes, and I could do a little touch-up meditation. I would just stand there at the bus stop. I couldn't sit down anywhere, so I would just stand there at the bus stop and meditate. Or maybe I was in a line at a government office and this line only moved every 5, 10, 15 minutes and I would stand there and meditate. This wasn't one of my 2 or 3 meditations per day, but it was like a little touch up just to do a little bit of meditation. So you can use it in these kinds of situations too. The walking position, this is helpful again if you're noticing you're falling asleep, but also if you have an overactive mind, if you have like a lot of thoughts going through your mind, and when you sit down, it's just the mind is bombarded with thoughts, you could use the walking position. Or if you have like a lot of energy in the mind, where the mind is like, the last thing you're thinking about is sitting down and being still. Your mind just needs to go, right? So I'm going to teach you that tomorrow afternoon, where I'm going to teach you how to do the walking meditation. So I'll give you all the details of that. But the way you would use it is if you have an overactive mind, or if you have a lot of energy in the mind and you're not interested in sitting and being still or lying or standing. So these are the ways that I've used these. But you can figure out for yourself in what situation you would use these. This is like a tool belt that you would like to be able to assemble all these tools and use them at different times based on what you need. So do you guys have any questions on the positions or meditation teacher or what meditation is? Any of the basics you have questions about? Yeah? Mm-hmm.
I tend to want to move my body, like rocking or Usually it's rocking during meditation.
That's the restlessness of the mind, that fetter of restlessness that we talked about. You would like to learn to be stable and steady in your meditation. If you're interested in having movement, you would like to go to the walking position, because eventually you need to get to the point where your mind is stable and steady. And because the mind is stable and steady and tranquil, the body will also be tranquil too. So if you're noticing that you feel like you want to have movement, I would go to the walking position rather than try any of the others. Okay. So now let's go into some more things here related to meditation. This is starting and conducting your meditation session. So the first thing to understand about meditation is the mind is the boss and the body is the employee. What I mean by this is whatever's going on in the body's just following along. It's the boss that's making all the decisions. But in order to get to the boss and train the boss, you need to go through the employee. You can't just walk right into the boss's office. So that's why you would like the employees to be comfortable, not luxurious and not painful, but you'd like the employee to be comfortable. So sometimes you might go places, and if you experience pain, they'll tell you to just breathe through it. This is unwise. The Buddha already showed us that that's unwise, because he was hanging himself upside down from trees. He was laying on beds of nails. He was starving himself. That's not what leads to enlightenment. Causing the body physical pain doesn't lead to enlightenment. That physical pain is there for a reason. It's alerting you, hey, something's wrong here. Your hip's hurting. Make some changes. Hey, your knee's hurting. Make some changes. So if you're noticing physical pain in the body, you can adjust your position in the position that you're in, or you can change the position. This isn't strike a pose and stick with it, right? This is make sure the employee is comfortable. Because if all you experience in the mind is pain, 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 you're not going to be able to eliminate unwholesome qualities and cultivate wholesome qualities. But also, if the body is too luxurious, it's going to fall asleep, right? It's going to fall asleep on you, right? And how are you going to be able to train your mind, right? So you need to have the body in the middle where it's comfortable, not painful and not luxurious, okay? When the Buddha teaches meditation, you can see his words where he's guiding students in meditation. We have his actual words of how he was guiding breathing mindfulness meditation. Prior to meditation, he would instruct his students to set up mindfulness in front of them. Now you guys know what mindfulness is. It's awareness of mind. So what he's teaching you is to gather your mind, gather your thoughts, have some awareness of mind as you ease into meditation. Don't just plop down into meditation. So that's what I taught yesterday, was the chanting. That's going to help you gather some awareness of mind as you ease into the meditation. But if you're not going to chant, just be sure that you do something else. Maybe you take off your shoes, you use the bathroom, maybe even you do a little bit of stretching at your seat or whatever it is that you're going to do, and then you kind of gather your thoughts and go into meditation. You don't want to just plop down into meditation. So you like to set up mindfulness in front of you before you start meditating. Gather your mind, gather your thoughts, bring some awareness to the mind. In terms of your time, frequency, and schedule, let me ask you guys a question. Is it possible for you to meditate at exactly the same time every day? She says no. You say no. Why not? Is it possible to meditate at exactly the same time every day? No? Why not? Is it possible to meditate exactly the same time every day for the rest of your life? No? Why not? Impermanence, right? You already know. It's not possible. So if you set up for yourself, I'm going to meditate every day at 8 a.m., you can't do it. Tell you right now, you can't do it, right? So sometimes you might hear someone say that, oh, you have to meditate at 3:30 a.m. every day. That's the best time to meditate. That's when you're going to get the most benefit. It's not true. The Buddha didn't meditate at 3:30 a.m. every day. You know how I know that? Because clocks didn't even exist 2,500 years ago. He wasn't able to tell precise time. So that's how he got to enlightenment. He didn't meditate at 3:30 a.m. And I can assure you there's nothing special going on at 3:30 a.m. that's going to make your meditation any better or any worse, right? So what the Buddha did is he meditated 3 times a day, morning, midday, and evening. So basically, you like to have some anchor points. Somewhere in the morning, somewhere in the evening, you'd like to meditate. And if you can get a middle of the day meditation in, that's great. You won't get to enlightenment by meditating once a day. But when you get up to twice a day, you'll notice that the benefits really increase. And as I was mentioning this morning, if it's a matter of one meditation for 30 minutes or 2 for 15, go for the 2 for 15. The frequency is more important than the duration, than the amount. And then just gradually expand that 15 minutes to be longer and longer and longer. So you'd like to build up to 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes. And it can take you 6 months, a year, even 2 years to do that. Because there's certain unbeneficial things that you're doing right now that you're going to need to kind of clean up out of your life. If you're searching social media for 6 hours a day, or you're on YouTube for 5 hours a day, you're going to need to shrink that down a little bit, right? So that you can make space for the meditation. So if you set up these anchor points for yourself, that's what you would like. Morning and in the evening would be ideal. If you're going to meditate sometime in the evening, you would like to do this when your mind isn't sleepy. Because if you're going to sleep at 10 p.m., you would like to be meditating at maybe 9:15. But that's not to say you couldn't meditate at 6 or 7 or 8 or 8:30. You can do that. But it's just that you're not interested in waiting until 10 o'clock to meditate because your mind's going to be sleepy. Because remember, it's a dedicated, active, purposeful training session. You need the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. So you'd like to be meditating prior to the mind getting sleepy. In terms of your keeping track of your time of meditation, I encourage you to not use an alarm where you don't need to, because there's 2 things that are going to happen if you set an alarm. You're going to be in meditation thinking, is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Your mind's going to be craving, right? And you're trying to eliminate craving. So if you're in meditation thinking, is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Your mind hasn't let go, right? Or the second thing that's going to happen is you're going to be deep in meditation, getting all kinds of benefit. And man, it's amazing. The mind's transforming. Oh man, if I just didn't set that alarm, right? So that's the mind trying to decide what I'm going to be doing, sometime in the future, but just stay in the present moment. So maybe like in the evenings or the weekends, if you don't need an alarm, don't use an alarm. That'll train your mind to more fully let go. But maybe you're on your way to work and you only have 20 minutes and that's it. Or you only have 15 minutes and you need to set the alarm. Okay, set the alarm. But where you don't need it, it's best to not use it. The way you determine how long you've been meditating is you look at your clock before you start, which is say 9 a.m. Now I'm going to meditate. And then when I'm done meditating, I'm going to look at my clock again. Oh, 9:15. Okay, meditated for 15 minutes. Now, let me just work on expanding that. And you might check in about once a week. Even now, after all these years, I still do that. I still check in because sometimes 5 minutes in meditation can seem like an hour, and an hour can seem like 5 minutes, right? So you'd like to check in just every once in a while and make sure that you're working in that direction of 30 minutes, okay? It's important not to judge your meditation as being good or bad. Sometimes people do that, and you get caught in this trap, and it becomes diminishing and degrading. All meditation is beneficial. Every meditation is beneficial. If your meditation is, in your mind's really peaceful in your meditation, okay, that's fine. But if you're in meditation and your mind is really busy and overactive, that was a beneficial meditation session because you've got mindfulness. You've got awareness of mind. You were aware for those 15 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever it was that, wow, the mind's really busy. And that's insightful. That's wisdom for you. That's mindfulness. You've cultivated mindfulness. That wasn't a bad meditation. Because now with that wisdom, if you have important decisions to make that day, maybe you delay them until tomorrow or the next day or something else, right? So there's no such thing as a good or a bad meditation. Every single meditation is beneficial. So you'd like to build up to 2 or 3 sessions for 30 minutes. You're not in a race with anybody. You're not in a competition. It's your journey to enlightenment. And just work on that. It can take 6 months, a year, even 2 years. Frequency is more important than duration. Okay? You might have sleepiness during your meditation. If you're noticing sleepiness, I already gave you one solution, which is you could switch positions, right? If you're in the seated or lying position and you're sleepy, you can switch to standing or walking. Now, if you're sleepy in the standing position, I'm not quite sure what you're going to do there, right? You're not going to be able to switch to walking, although I've had some people say even in walking position, they're sleepy. So that's where the second option comes in. The second option is just get some sleep. Right? You can do that because what you're going to notice is your mind's kind of like a dry sponge, that if you haven't been training your mind and you're just starting to get on the path to enlightenment, when you start training your mind and your mind starts getting what it finally is needed all these years, you might notice that it has more tendency to sleep. Because if you meditate the way that the Buddha taught, it's tiring for the mind. The mind can get kind of exhausted when you haven't been meditating. So it's like exercising the mind. If you went to the gym and you haven't been exercising this physical body for many years, and you went to the gym, when you first started working out, the first few weeks or the first few months, the body's going to be pretty tired. But then once you get conditioning in your body, it's going to become a bit easier for you, right? So it's the same thing with your mind. You kind of have like a little hump to get over. Maybe 3 months, 6 months, a year hump, where you might notice that you have more of a tendency to get sleepy, not only during meditation, but outside of meditation too, because your mind's working quite hard during the meditation. So just understand that that's normal. That's par for the course. And if you need to just get some sleep, get some sleep. Take a nap. And then when you wake up, do your meditation, right? Your mind needs that sleep, so give it to it. You might notice physical sensations during your meditation. What I mean by this is like itching or tingling, okay? If you're noticing that, what you would like to do is ignore it if you can. Just stay focused on the breath. If you notice that there's an itch on your shoulder, just stay focused on your breath. This will be really a good challenge for the mind. It'll help your mind to get more training. Because what your mind might have is a craving for permanent comfort of the body. And when you notice that itch, you might have this urge to scratch it because you have this craving for permanent comfort. But then what's going to happen is you're going to have another one and another one and another one, right? You're just going to keep doing this all the way through your entire meditation. So what you would like to do is understand that that itch is impermanent. This body is impermanent. It's not going to be comfortable 100% of the time. Even when you're enlightened, you're going to have discomfort in the body sometimes, but the mind is going to be completely content and peaceful. So if you notice that there's an itch and you can go through the whole life cycle of that itch, understanding that it's impermanent, wonderful. But if not, if you're in that meditation and you feel that itch and you just have a really strong urge to scratch it, okay, go ahead and scratch it. And if that took you 5 or 8 seconds to get to that point, well, next time, try to extend it a little bit longer. Try to make it 12 or 15 seconds. And then next time, try to make it a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And eventually, you'll be able to go the entire life cycle of the itch without actually scratching it, because your mind doesn't have a craving for permanent comfort, and you'll know that that itch is actually impermanent, that it's just going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. Okay, you might have visual stimulation during your meditation. What I mean by this is you might have certain colors or certain images, like the color yellow or green or purple or white or things like this. Sometimes people contact me and they send me messages and like, David, I saw the color purple. Does that mean my boyfriend's going to come back to me? My girlfriend's going to come back to me? Or they'll say, I saw the color green. Does that mean I'm going to get rich? What does that mean? It doesn't mean any of that stuff, right? And sometimes the mind can be conceited and you know, like, does this mean I'm going to be rich and famous? What does this mean, right? You're not a special person if you're noticing colors in your meditation. It's nothing special that you need to be conceited about or that you need to worry about. It's impermanent. It's going to happen, but then eventually you'll get to the point where it's not happening anymore. It's not a problem. I'll explain to you what's happening. What you're doing is you're training the mind. The mind is non-physical. Then there's something called the brain. The brain is physical. It's a physical organ. And there's a connection between these two things. Sight actually occurs inside the brain. The eye is just a lens that brings in light, but the sight is occurring inside the brain. So when the eyes are closed, you can actually still see things, right? When you're training the mind, the non-physical, non-tangible object, it's having an effect to the brain. The physical structures of the brain are actually changing. Scientists are telling us this because nowadays we have MRIs and CAT scans and other devices, and they're actually measuring this stuff, where during the lifetime of the Buddha, they couldn't do that. So they can actually see through their electronic devices and technology that the physical structures of the brain are changing for the better, for the benefit of the human being. And once you get to a certain point of those changes, the brain never regresses backwards ever again. So when the physical structures of the brain are changing, that's what's producing the colors and the images and the stuff like that. And it's normal. You might even hear this. When I was meditating at different times, I could hear it. It was like, I could hear it inside the skull. I used to walk around with a lot of pressure in my skull. I used to have migraine headaches, sometimes 3 to 5 times a week, to the point where I used to vomit. And then after training my mind, which had an effect to the brain, I don't get those headaches anymore. I don't have that pressure in the skull anymore. Everything's completely, light and tranquil and peaceful. So you might notice these images, like different colors and flashes of light and different images. And you can just understand that it's temporary, it's normal. You're going to eventually get through a point where your brain has physically done all these changes and you're not going to experience those things anymore. So it's important not to have conditioned pleasant feelings like, oh, wow, that was a really pretty color. Wow, I really like that, right? Because eventually it's not going to be there anymore. And then you're going to be sad that it's not there, right? So just understand it's normal. It's going to happen. It's going to arise, change, and fade away. It's impermanent, just like everything else. Then sometimes people are taught to meditate with external stimulus. What I mean by this is like candles or incense or beads or music or things like this. We might even put mantras in there as well, right? Any number of things. Scent. Sometimes people put scent in the air when they're meditating, or a phone app. That's really popular these days, right? If you've been doing those things up to this point, that's fine. That's what's got you to this point. But now what I encourage you to do is strip all those things away, because your mind can actually cling to these things and hold on to them. And you're not going to be able to meditate in all situations. Because if I was attached to a candle, for example, or incense or something like this, and let's just say I'm like at a park and I'm walking in this park and it's a beautiful day. The sun is out, the wind is blowing, the birds are chirping, the sun is glistening off the lake. And I'm like, wow, this is a beautiful park. I'd like to sit down and meditate. Oh man, I don't have my favorite candle with me. I can't meditate. Right? Or maybe I'm 3 days into a mountain trek in the mountains of Chiang Mai, 3 days away from society, right? And I'd like to sit down in the jungle and meditate. Man, I don't have my phone app with me. I can't. The phone app doesn't work out here, right? You'd like to be able to meditate anywhere at any time, because you're going to need to be able to meditate in all situations. So there's only 3 things that you actually need to meditate, and you'll have all 3 of these things with you at all times. All you need is the body, the mind, and the breath. That's all you need. Those are the 3 things that you need, and you're going to have them all the way to the end of this life. The body, the mind, and the breath. If you can train your mind to meditate with those 3 things, you'll be able to meditate anywhere at any time. Right? So if you're currently meditating with all these things like beads or candles or incense or any of these things, what I would encourage you to do is gradually train the mind to move away from them. And the best way to do this is gradually, because remember, your mind craves permanence. It holds on to these things. Another way to say that is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change, right? So what you do is you do these little small incremental changes where your mind almost doesn't even recognize what you're doing. So you do one meditation with whatever it is, phone app, music, whatever, and then one session without it. One session with it, one session without it. You do that for like a week or 2, right? And now once your mind gets acclimated to that, you do one session with it, 2 or 3 without. One session with it, 2 or 3 without. Do that for a week or so. Let your mind get acclimated to that. Then do one session with it, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many without it. Then one session with it, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many without it. And you slowly decrease these things to the point where you're just always doing it with the body, the mind, and the breath. You can do this with any kind of unwholesome things that you're trying to move out of your life. Like, let's just say I was smoking cigarettes. I would do exactly the same thing. If I was smoking 20 cigarettes a day, I would go down to 18 for like a week or so. Then I would go down to 15 for a week or 2. Then I'd go down to 12, right? Just gradually. Then eventually one day I have 1 cigarette, the next day no cigarettes. one day, one cigarette, and then eventually just slowly ease it out. This is going to be a more sustainable change for you. You can also do this with wholesome things that you're looking to bring into your life. Like say you're interested in moving to a plant-based food supply, maybe eating vegan or vegetarian. You could have one day with meat, one day with no meat, one day with meat, one day with no meat. Do that for like a week or two, and then gradually increase that, because you're going to need to find new suppliers for food, new restaurants, new recipes, and things like this. And that all takes time. So you can just gradually bring in something wholesome like that in your life. It's a more sustainable change for you, right? So these are things that you would consider in terms of starting and conducting your meditation. Any questions here? No questions? Okay, I don't see any online either. Okay, so now let me share with you the 4 types of meditation that the Buddha taught. These are his words about the 4 types of meditations, because nowadays there's hundreds and maybe even thousands of meditations out there, but those aren't from the Buddha. And if you were practicing those different meditations, your practice would be very broad, because you're having to learn 20 or 30 or 50 different meditations. You wouldn't be able to get really deep with each of those meditations. And some of those meditations, many of them actually, are taking your mind in the opposite direction of enlightenment. It's actually not training it to be able to accomplish the things that you need to accomplish in meditation. So it's only 4 meditations that the Buddha ever taught. And by learning those, you can actually get really deep into those meditations, because you can learn them really well and you can really master them. There's only really 2 that are actually needed by every single practitioner, and the other 2 are kind of specialized meditations that aren't even needed by everybody. So here's his words on the 4 meditations that he taught. These are the only 4 he ever taught. Prior to this, he was teaching his ordained practitioners about something else. And then he says, okay, having based himself on these 5 things, meaning the 5 things that he was teaching previously, the monk should develop further another 4 things. The perception of unattractiveness of the body should be developed to abandon lust. This is a meditation to eliminate sexual cravings. So if you had like 5 or 10 boyfriends or girlfriends and you had a really high sexual craving and you were trying to bring that down to just one person, one partner, this would be a good meditation to help you with that. Or if you're trying to get rid of sexual craving altogether, this would help you with that. Loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. This is the meditation to eliminate anger, hatred, and ill will, and all those lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance, even the slightest dislike towards another being. Sometimes you might have that in your mind. So you can get to the point where you have love and kindness towards everybody. And this meditation is an important part of that. But you would need more than just meditation. You need other things as well. But this is a meditation to help you do that. Mindfulness of breathing, or breathing mindfulness meditation, should be developed to cut off thoughts. This is the meditation that you guys are learning in this course, right? You're cutting off the thoughts and cutting off the thoughts and cutting off the thoughts. This is training your mind to apply right effort in your day-to-day life, right? You're cultivating mindfulness and concentration. You're eliminating craving, desire, attachment. You'll see that here in a moment. The perception of impermanence should be developed to eradicate the conceit, I am. When one perceives impermanence, the perception of non-self is stabilized. One who perceives non-self eradicates the conceit, I am, which is nibbana, or enlightenment, in this very life. This is a meditation to realize non-self. Right? The universal truth of non-self, eliminating personal existence view. There's a meditation to help you to be able to do that. Okay, so now what I've done on this next slide is I've listed them in the order that someone will sometimes learn them, particularly these 2. You usually learn them in this sequence. Is that first you start with breathing mindfulness meditation. This was the primary form of meditation that the Buddha used in order to get to enlightenment, because it addresses the primary cause of discontentedness, which is craving, desire, attachment. So there's the unwholesome quality that you're eliminating, which is craving, desire, attachment. And then there's the wholesome qualities that you're cultivating, which is mindfulness, or awareness of mind, and concentration. Okay, so that's what you're eliminating and that's what you're cultivating. When your mind's on the breath, and it moves off the breath, that's your mindfulness. You're aware that it moved off the breath. So you're training during your meditation to have that awareness. And then when you cut it off and let it go, that's training your mind to let go. Because with craving, desire, attachment, you're holding on. That boyfriend or girlfriend that you had, you didn't want to let go, right? So that's why you felt that anger and that boredom and that loneliness, and you're missing them because your mind wouldn't let go, right? So you can train your mind to let go, let go, let go. So if 10, 15, 20 times during your meditation you need to let go, that's actually really good for your mind. So that's what you're doing in this meditation. The goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. The goal is actually to train it to let go, so that you can have mindfulness or awareness of mind in your day-to-day life. You're walking through the mall and you see the mind pulling towards that beautiful woman or that handsome man. It's like, oh, I just wish I had that. No, cut that off, right? Or you're pulling towards those new shoes. You're like, oh, I just want to get those new shoes on my feet. You can see that your mind's pulling, and you can cut that off and let it go. Maybe you already have 30 pairs of shoes at home. What is one more pair of shoes going to do for you, right? So you can see that with your mindfulness, and you can cut it off and let it go. So these others, I'm going to teach you at different times, right? This course, we're focusing on the first one, but at least you can see here that there's certain unwholesome qualities you're eliminating, and there's certain wholesome qualities that you're cultivating, okay? So here's some more words of the Buddha on meditation. He says, a pot without a stand is easy to tip over. A pot without a stand is easy to tip over. The pot is your mind. The stand is your meditation practice. A mind without a meditation practice is easy to become discontent. That's what he's saying, right? If you don't have a meditation practice, of course you get angry. Of course you have stress. Of course you have anxiety. Of course you have guilt and shame and fear, right? Because there's no stand. There's no meditation practice, right? So just like a pot has a stand, maybe right now you have like a little dowel rod and your pot's kind of like teeter-tottering on that. But as you train with meditation, the stand becomes wider and wider and wider. And now the pot becomes more and more stable that it can't be tipped over. Okay, so here's some words from the Buddha where he talks about essentially the goal of meditation. He says, monks, there is one thing that when developed and cultivated leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge or experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana. What is that one thing? Mindfulness of breathing, breathing mindfulness meditation. This is that one thing that when developed and cultivated leads exclusively to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment, to nibbana, right? So he's saying this meditation of breathing mindfulness meditation, it leads to one thing, which is enlightenment. That's what the goal of it is. He's not saying you only need one thing to get to enlightenment, because otherwise he would have just taught meditation and that's it. We wouldn't have 45 volumes of books that are this thick. And that's just what we have left, right? So he's not saying you only need one thing. He's just saying this meditation has one purpose, and that is to get you to enlightenment. It's kind of like your car. It has one purpose, and that is transportation. Right? Your car leads to transportation. But of course, you need more than just transportation to live your life. You need food, clothing, shelter, medical care, things like this. So this meditation, it leads to one thing, which is freedom from strong feelings, to peace, to enlightenment, right? Okay, so in terms of doing this meditation, what you would like to do is you would like to focus on the breath, right? When the mind's focused on the breath, that's your concentration. When it moves off the breath, that's your mindfulness. And now you cut that off and let it go. That's training your mind to let go. So as the thoughts are arising during your meditation, cut them off and let them go. The goal here isn't to eliminate your thoughts, because you're going to have thoughts during your meditation. The goal is to notice them sooner and sooner and cut them off and let them go easier and easier. And you shouldn't need anything more than 30 minutes of meditation, right? It's kind of like going to the gym. You're exercising your mind, right? You could go to the gym You could hang out for 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours. You could watch TV. You could send text messages. You could talk to your friends. You could do all these kinds of things, but you're not really getting a pretty good workout, right? You're just kind of roaming around the gym. Or you could go to the gym. You could get in there 30, 45 minutes, get your work done and get out, because there's a lot more things to do in life than just hang out in the gym, right? So that's what you're doing. If you're really focused and you do the meditation the way the Buddha taught, you don't need anything more than 30 minutes. Right? That's really all you need, is just get in, do your meditation, and then there's a whole another part of the world out here than just meditation. You can go out and spend time with your friends and your family and go to work and do personal hobbies and activities. That's the whole reason why you're training your mind, is to be able to go out in the world and have a wonderful experience. So the idea of sitting around and meditating for 8 or 10 hours, 12 hours a day, that's not what's going to lead to your enlightenment, because that's not sustainable. You need to be able to go out into the world and enjoy life and spend time with other people. So you like to focus on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off, cut that off and let it go. So in meditation, you're cutting off anything and everything that comes up. Whether it's a wholesome thought or an unwholesome thought, you cut it off and let it go. But then in your day-to-day life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome thoughts. If you have the thought of calling up your mom, checking in on her, maybe taking her out to lunch or something like that, go ahead. You don't have to cut that off, right? You're practicing generosity. You have loving kindness and compassion for your mom. Go forward with that. But if you're thinking about punching your boss in the face, cut that off. Let it go. Right? It's going to produce unwholesome results for you, right? So any unwholesome thoughts that are coming up, that's what you cut off and let go of. So it's just like a professional athlete. If a professional athlete, like say a pole vaulter, went into the gym, they're going to do weight training, cardiovascular training, agility training. Their training is going to look very different than their sport. Now, when they go out on their sport, it's going to look very different. So it's the same thing. You're training in one way, and you're practicing in day-to-day life in a different way. In your meditation, you're cutting off everything and anything, because you're training your mind to let go, right? But in your day-to-day life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome thoughts. You're walking down the street, you start judging someone, you start looking down on them because of the shoes they're wearing, or the way they talk, or the way their hair looks, or their skin color, or their sexual orientation, or something like that. You cut that off and let it go. Don't allow your mind to do that, right? You restrain the mind. And that's what's going to ultimately completely transform it. Okay, so this breathing mindfulness meditation is what's going to help you to do that. Any questions on this? Okay. I think you guys are seeing how this fits into the overall picture, right? So just one last thing from the Buddha. He says, meditate, monks. Do not be complacent, lest you regret it later. This is my instruction to you. This is the only thing you ever get from the Buddha, where he's kind of like, okay, go do something, right? He's never trying to guilt, shame, or fear you into anything. He's never trying to convince you of anything. He's never pressuring you or trying to force you to do anything. Here, he's just giving you a heads up, like, hey, don't be complacent, because you're going to regret it, right? When you're angry, when you're stressed, when you're having anxiety, when you feel guilt and shame and fear, you're going to regret having not meditated. So be diligent. Don't allow this human life to go to waste, right? Be diligent and dedicated to build up your practice. One of the things that I would say is never give up. Because giving up on your meditation practice is like saying, I'm just going to be angry for the rest of my life. Oh, well, right? I'm just going to be stressed and have anxiety the rest of my life. Oh, well, I give up, right? Like, that's no way to live life. You would actually like to be able to eradicate this. So if you did 2 meditations a day, that would be 60 meditations a month. You're going to miss meditation from time to time. This is normal, right? Your enlightenment isn't going to be determined based on if you miss meditation today or not. What's going to determine your meditation or determine your enlightenment is, can you string together enough months and enough years of regular meditation where over the next multiple years that you're consistently meditating. So if you meditate 52 times a month, 53, 54, 55, if you're meditating that level of frequency, you're making your way to enlightenment. So you don't need to beat yourself up that you're going to meditate 60 times a month, because are you going to be able to permanently meditate 2 times a day for the rest of your life? No? Why? impermanence, right? You already know that before you even try, right? So you don't need to feel guilty or shameful if you miss a meditation. Just if you miss your meditation today, what do you do next? Do you allow that to be 1 week, 1 month, 1 year you're not meditating? Yeah, you're not going to get to enlightenment. But if you're like, okay, I missed meditation today, I better get right on top of that, right? And now you start, being diligent and dedicated. Now you're making your way to enlightenment. Okay, so don't ever give up, because that's just resigning yourself to experiencing anger and frustration the rest of your life. Okay. All right. So it's 2:20. Would you guys like to do a meditation session together for afternoon? Yeah. Okay. You guys need like a little bathroom break since we just got back from lunch? Yeah. Let's take a little 5-minute bathroom break, and then we'll come back and we'll do meditation together. Okay? All right. Let me repeat all that over. So we were talking at break, and she was asking me questions because she thought that only monks could get to enlightenment and only men could get to enlightenment. And you'll see people that will teach this, that will teach you only ordained practitioners can get to enlightenment and only men can get to enlightenment. But the Buddha never taught that. You can see in his own words that he talks about females getting to enlightenment, and he talks about household practitioners getting to enlightenment, and that everyone can get to enlightenment. There's nothing different about a male's mind and a female's mind. They actually function exactly the same. In terms of the 10 fetters, they're all the same between a male's mind and a female's mind. They'll have different degrees of the fetters, but the mind functions the same. So someone might have different hobbies, different thoughts, different ideas, but in terms of the functioning of the mind with the 10 fetters and craving, desire, attachment, and all these other things, it's exactly the same from a male to a female. So if you hear people say that only ordained practitioners can get to enlightenment or only men can get to enlightenment, you can know that that's not true. And if you're interested in seeing it in the words of the Buddha for yourself, so you don't believe me either, just let me know and I'll show it to you, because it's in the book series over there, and you can find it for yourself, or I can show it to you so that you can see it for yourself. That way you can know the truth that the Buddha taught, that all individuals that are in the human realm and the heavenly realm are able to get to enlightenment. Okay? All right. So let's do our meditation. I'm going to do the chanting, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to do any guidance. I'm going to let you guys just do your own guidance. Right? Just, now to focus on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you just cut that off and bring it back. If you'd like to chant along as a group, we'll chant along as a group. But at this point, I'm not going to do any guidance with you, so that you can get used to meditating without guidance, because that's ultimately what you're going to need to get to. Right? If you can only meditate when I'm guiding you, then your mind hasn't let go yet. So I'll guide you again tomorrow morning. When we're here, I'll guide you, and some other times I'll guide you. But right now, I'm not going to guide you. Give you guys a chance to meditate on your own. Okay? So we'll chant, and then you go ahead and focus on the breath. Anytime the mind moves off the breath, cut that off and let it go. And then when we're done, we'll come out with some more chanting. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanam Poto Bhagavati. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะเกวะพุทธังมหาเกวันนังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมะเขวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะเขวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตวามนุสรังพุทโธภควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to make your way out of meditation, any questions on breathing mindfulness meditation? Anything you guys would like to ask? No questions? Okay. Well, I'm going to give you guys a heads up of what we're planning for tomorrow. Tomorrow, of course, we're going to start with meditation in the morning, the chanting and guidance and breathing mindfulness meditation with more chanting. Then I'm going to teach you guys what's called the 3 poisons, or the 3 unwholesome roots, or 3 fires. Today you learned the 4 noble truths, which gives you like a window into the mind. But tomorrow I'm going to broaden it for you, and I'm going to deepen it for you to help you understand more what's at play in the unenlightened mind. Then I'm going to teach you the 5 precepts. Those are 5 impactful decisions that can lead to either wholesome results or unwholesome results. And it plugs into the Eightfold Path. So it's going to help you understand the Eightfold Path more. Then in the afternoon, I'm going to teach you walking meditation. And there'll probably be a whole bunch of people here tomorrow because it's our regular Wednesday class. So just so you know that the room will probably be pretty full tomorrow. So it depends on who's in town, really. There could be nobody here too, right? You never know. Impermanence, right? All right. So you guys have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Okay? Okay. You're welcome.